What's good, YouTube, and the people that are watching this? Today is September 10th. Normally, it's not really a holiday for most people. It's the day before 9/11, and but for me, it is because this is about the 6 month mark since I came to Austin. I don't know if it was I think it was May 11th or 10th, whenever I came to Austin after attempting suicide 2 times in one day. Um, but I would like to talk about just in general my journey to Austin, um, what has been going on, and how I got my first studio apartment at 18, just recently, about a couple days ago, and moving into that, and all the journey and the process that it took to get here, and it took to even be able to start back MMA training again, which I started and then had to stop, but we'll get into that in a little bit. So, where does this begin, you may ask? Well, it begins in a quaint town of degeneracy called Lufkin. I was going to Angelina College at the time, getting my associate's degree in pre-engineering, and I was really struggling with classwork, but more importantly, I was really struggling with mental health. A month previous to my attempt at taking my own life, I had got off juvenile probation from an incident that happened whenever I stole my dad's car and I crashed it into a parking lot after he was socially isolating me and basically starving me. But after that, I had that incident happen, and I was with my mom and my grandmother, and they loved me very much, and but I was with them, and instead of voicing out how I was feeling, I made an attempt at first to overdose on opiates, and then I tried to drink a bunch of alcohol after the opiates wore off, which thankfully I didn't do them together because I definitely would have done something. But neither of those worked. So as I was about to take the third attempt, I went to the skate park where people would congregate and stuff, and I ended up wrestling with a guy. And MMA and just combat sports in general have always given me like a better outlook on life, and they've always kind of been my goal just to pursue that since I was 16. But I really wasn't able to in my current circumstances, and I wouldn't be able to for the next like 3.5 to 4 years if I had taken the path that I was on. So, uh, I could have said something, but in my mind, I thought, no, they're not going to accept it. I was still acting as if I was not an adult yet, like I didn't have my own say. And ultimately, I ended up taking a lift out to Austin after wrestling and realizing that I do have a purpose in this world, and that is to fight, to do MMA. And I took the lift out here, and I was lost for a while. My first night here, it was like 2 when I got here because I took it in the evening. I took the lift at like 6, and it takes like 6 hours. So I got here at 2 after taking some old man's EV about 6 hours here, and I was conked out of my gourd. I was still kind of drunk. I'd taken a bunch of DXM pills, which are like cough medicine, basically robo tripping, and I was pretty messed up, right? So I slept it off from 2 to like 6. I got dropped outside of an MMA gym, which I trained at later actually. Um, and I made my way to find resources. So I used my phone. I bought a charger because I brought some stuff with me, just some clothes and money, enough to get me through. And I made it to eventually what is called LifeWorks, and they helped me gather resources, make connections. Stayed outside of a rec center for 2 weeks. That's the first little leg of my journey, was the rec center for 2 weeks, staying outside, collecting food, resources, and the necessary connections to get out of my circumstances. And that was it until I made it into the shelter, which will take us to the next part of our journey. So, inside the shelter, I managed to really rally, and I had built up already a strong network at LifeWorks of my case manager and fellow peers. And I made it to a homeless shelter called Camp Esperanza. Inside Camp Esperanza, the living situation was not as great. As you can imagine, you have a bunch of mostly ex-cons and addicts and people with serious mental health issues, as your roommates, and I just had a little bit of mental health issues at this point. Not too much. I was mostly healed to a certain degree. And I made it down there, and what I did was I tried a bunch of stuff. Like I was just throwing like just items at the wall and seeing what stuck and what didn't. When it came to trying things in life, I went to my first MMA gym and trained for about 2 months and 3 months until I got out of the shelter eventually. I landed my first job at Gold's Gym, which is a pretty terrible gig. You get paid. I was getting paid about $700 a month, but it was enough, and I was out there for a while. I met a lot of people that were pretty crazy. People were kind of jealous of me and my ability to get out of my situation, so people even threw coffee on my door occasionally, and just stuff like that. So I mean, it was pretty bad, what you can expect in that and sort of that side of that sort of environment. I mean, better than being on the street. I had an ability to lock up my things and have more things and more access to resources, but it was still hard. I only had one meal provided a day. I lost a lot of weight because you don't really have a fridge over there or any sort of way to cook any food. So yes, eventually, after having my job for a while and making it through, I managed to come across, through one of the case managers up there, a lady who was subletting a house. Now, I came to this house with the expectation that I would stay there for a good bit because it was $400 a month, but I ended up leaving eventually, and which led me to where I am now. And inside of this house, there were 2 people at first. And I could have had my own room if I would have paid $500 more a month for rent, which honestly I regret not doing now, but I didn't. So I shared a room with one of these guys. But there was a guy, we're going to call him K for reasons. Not going to give out his full name. And he was a chef and a sex offender, but his case was not as clear-cut as the guy who moved in 2 weeks, which is the start of when things started kind of getting hazy over there. And there was a guy, we're going to call him D. He was ex-con and a former addict, so sometimes he'd be kind of tweakish, but I don't think he was really on any drugs except his prescribed Suboxone. We would have that. So I was doing that, and my goal was to continue doing MMA, become a personal trainer because the money there looked good. But eventually shit broke down. I had bought an electric bike with my savings fund that I had left over from when I was working at Whataburger when I was on juvenile probation. That eventually broke down progressively more and more. And eventually I had made it to the point where I was just fed up. So I came into work one day, and a lady, beautiful lady, blessed me. One of my coworkers blessed me with the thought that maybe I should just apply to other jobs. And that's what I did. I applied to a lot of other jobs, and I made it to where I am now at a local grocery store. Not going to say the name for certain reasons, but I'm working there now, and it's really good, actually. It's one of the best jobs I've ever had, probably the best, actually. And it's a really good gig. I get almost full-time, $17.50. It's enough for me to support myself into where I'm at now. But for a while, I was really lost, and this is where my mental health really struggled the most because I didn't know how I was going to get out for a while until I just had to start putting things together. And, there's some things that you have to wait on. You can't have them immediately. And it sucked. And while I was in the process of moving out, at my new job, I had to commute there about 2 hours every day just to get there. To get back was the same. But ultimately, I made it, right? I made it through. And I picked up as many shifts as I could immediately, just so that I would have more ability to get in, have more money to get into my new apartment. I had to put down MMA for a while, which I am getting back into now. But yeah, that led me into where I am now, which is an apartment about 25 minutes away by bike from my job, about like 5 to 20 depending on the traffic by car. Closer to 10 though, honestly, most of the time, from what I've seen on Google. And yeah, and now I just live easy enough from a library, a beautiful park. Everything's super close. I can go grocery shopping easier, and I'm on to the next thing, which is resuming my MMA training, getting a car, furthering any sort of personal development on the side, like what I'm doing now with this YouTube video, and such and such. So yes, Everything is going great. And we have lots more to come. This is not the end. This is just the beginning. Peace out. And that is what can happen in 6 months whenever you put your mind to the metal.